I have to be honest, even after watching this movie and giving my thoughts when making this review, I'm still kind of nervous to talk about it because I have a history with this icon. I do. I think most kids my age, even our parents or even our brothers or sisters, have some sort of history with this figure. If people just generally feel the way they do about this film, just know people are going to have extreme emotions about it, like in a way where if you try to give off an opinion that someone may not like, they feel like it's a personal attack in the sense of saying that you have some sort of pre-notion biasy of wanting to slander the movie or criticize something about it rather than actually just giving a well-rounded thought. With that said, let's moonwalk into this.
Magic.
Michael is directed by Antoine Fuqua and written by John Logan. The film stars Jaafar Jackson, Neil Long, Laura Harrier, Juliano, Krue Valdi, Miles Teller, and Colman Domingo. The story of pop superstar Michael Jackson, from his extraordinary early days in the Jackson 5 to the visionary artist whose creative ambition fuels a relentless pursuit to become the biggest entertainer in the world. Michael Jackson is one of, if not the most iconic pop artist of all time. The King of Pop left a huge impact in the world of music and entertainment. That is how significant this guy was. Ever since he was 9, 10 years old in the Jackson 5 to what he would become, that is how monumental this figure has been for such a long time. And to this day, even after his death in 2009, no other artist has ever reached the same heights as MJ did. Probably maybe, and I say maybe, closest, and I know people would say no, absolutely not, but you can't deny it, or you really can't 100% lie to yourself when you say maybe Taylor Swift, maybe. But I would say the sort of presence that Michael brings, I don't think we will ever see something like that in our lifetimes, if not for a very long time. It's incredible to know how much MJ has had on the world of entertainment. That is how influential he was. So it was a matter of time when Hollywood would decide to make a biopic about Michael as well as his stardom. It's always the case whenever there is a figure that is so iconic or so influential, Hollywood decides, well, you know what? They're dead, but we can make some money off of them. And wouldn't you know it, Graham King, who produced 2018's Bohemian Rhapsody, he got hold of the movie rights to make a Michael Jackson biopic. And I was legit worried on how this movie was going just because of his involvement. Okay, really, it was solely just that because Bohemian Rhapsody, I felt like I was drinking the Kool-Aid with that movie, you guys, and to me, I feel so embarrassed to even act as if I really loved that movie when in actuality I look back on it and be like, it's bad. With all the talent on the film, whether it be in front of the camera, having Jaafar Jackson, one of Michael's nephews, playing him in this movie, with some of the other cast members, Neil Long and even Colman Domingo involved in this film, to Antoine Fuqua, the man who brought you Training Day, everything was in place for this to succeed. And look, I know people will say, were you going in for the allegation stuff? Two things. One, if they were going to, I would like them to address it. But because there was a 4-hour long cut and they had to rework the entire thing, you only get half the story. So it stops before any of all that controversy aside. So with having that already in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so if we're not going to do that, fine. So what do we got instead? Can you give me something to at least, at the very least, give me an understanding from somebody who, even though is a fan of Michael Jackson or at least loves his music, I would like to know from an audience perspective of today. I'm saying somebody that hasn't grown up with Michael Jackson or is very new to Michael Jackson. Can they really understand the King of Pop and who he is as an actual person? Somebody that you can really get to know and really understand his point of view and the creation of his music and the way in which you would really understand the creative process that it took him or the struggles and hurdles that he did to be what he was. In this case, however, this movie is nothing more than just the highlight reels of Jackson's career than being a dive into Michael as a person. And ultimately, it's the same old trend of biopic formula to a T. That is how I would describe it. And I really do mean that. I'm not lying, I'm not trying to make things up. That is legit how I felt about this movie. But before addressing my problems, okay, my actual criticisms and ones that I hope people can at least understand, here are my positives. The performances are stellar. The entire cast, but of course, mainly Jackson, Krue, Valdi, and Domingo are terrific, making it all entertaining from beginning to end. Talking about Michael himself in this movie, I think Juliano Valdi does a really good job of playing young Michael at the age in which he was part of the Jackson 5. Okay, he, I think, gets the mannerisms down and the way in which Michael was as a kid. But Jaafar Jackson, man, he is pretty much his uncle resurrected from the dead. It is really scary on how accurate he gets down, not just the mannerisms, the moves, but the characteristics of what makes Michael Jackson who he is, in the sense of how people kind of recollect or remember him in the public eye, how he kind of comes off. That to me, I think, is phenomenal, and it's showing the talent that he put into this role to get what his uncle did. That I'm not taking away. And also some of the singing that he does, which is kind of infused with some of his uncle's vocals, really well done. I think he does terrific in the role. Colman Domingo. Now, I have an issue with Joe Jackson in this movie in the sense of how evilishly cartoonish he is, like over the top. But I gotta give credit to Colman Domingo. The guy is a true natural actor and one that I always get excited whenever he's part of a project that I want to see. And yeah, he, I think, has the look and mannerisms that Joe Jackson kind of comes off and is conveying of him in the way in which he's performing it. I'm saying characteristics is one thing, but I'm saying him in terms of how he's performing it, he does it naturally well in this movie, and everyone else too. They do a nice job at it. The music is effective. Every song in both the Jackson 5 and Michael's catalog are used well to hit the areas of Michael's early to middle career. Of course, the selling point of the film. That's the reason why people really want to see this movie. It is simply, I want to hear some Michael Jackson music. And you're gonna get that. You get all the hits that everybody knows, and even hitting the Jackson 5's catalog as well. That is what this movie does. It hits on every level of trying to get the usage of the music that is being allowed by the Jackson estate to use for this movie. And of course, it's done very well. These songs being used in moments in Michael's life to kind of showcase the progression in which things have evolved and changed for him as he got older. The production is outstanding. Every set, costume, and behind the scenes aspects are incredible and are spot on. Also, the makeup and hairstyles are also top notch in the sense of how accurate it looks. The production of this movie is insane to me, that even some of the recreations are also really well done. The thriller aspect, I will not deny, is probably some of the best recreations of a music video I've ever seen. I will not deny that. I will not take it away from this movie. It is down to a T on how that video was and how it came off. That is what works about this movie, the production here, and trying to fit all the period piece and the clothing that Michael was wearing at the time is all spot on. The cinematography is stylistic. Cinematographer Dion Beebe shoots a slick and stunning film that showcases Michael's childhood to his breakout solo aspect in a gorgeous way, allowing it all to be on display in almost like a music video. I think that's the best way I can describe this movie. Is it's almost like watching a music video documenting a person's life. And I think Dion Beebe does a nice job of really showcasing this sort of whimsical but also very lively look into what Michael's world, in the sense of what the movie's trying to display and how it's showcasing the aspects in moments of his life, especially recreating the music videos, is all stellar, is amazing. It's done with so much care in that aspect. Beyond that, it all feels safe and surface level that makes the whole experience seem tame. That, you guys, is my biggest problem. I feel like this movie just feels safe. It doesn't want to try anything in terms of wanting to be a more personal, in-depth look into Michael. It just is focused solely on the surface level public eye image that you know of Michael, rather than what Michael was as a person, in terms of knowing what the family knows and what I think some reports may have of Michael in terms of how he was in person. So with that, here are now my negatives. The direction is flashy. Director Antoine Fuqua really focuses on recreating Michael's image in video moments than humanizing him, giving more style than substance. And listen, I'm not going to deny, I think he tries his best at really trying to give us a glimpse into Michael's life, but I think the problem is that I get this feeling, besides the style over substance, because it just feels like this movie is worried about how it looks more than how it actually feels, is that I get this feeling that Antoine Fuqua really had to pretty much do everything he can to not screw this up and to make sure everything was up to the Jackson Estate's approval. I think that's what I get the feeling of. I'm not trying to make a claim, I'm just saying that's what I feel. I get this sense of he wasn't really allowed to really take liberties. He had to stick to something that was given to him. And I think there is this pulling drive of just being told to recreate all the iconic moments about Michael Jackson in his videos, to just only going for like the surface level stuff that the public just only had seen of Michael, rather than actually going much deeper than what we get. The story is laid back. Following Michael's career from childhood to adulthood felt more like a Wikipedia summary than a well-rounded plot, being softer like most biopics. And I say most, but there are a few exceptions where some biopics actually do try to humanize people, like A Complete Unknown or Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere, where those actually try to humanize both Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen. This movie is so worried about trying to give Michael any sort of conflicted feelings in the way in which there was more to him than just, oh, he was a victim. I get it. The man was abused. It is also centered on him and his father's relationship, but I feel like there's not much depth to it other than just being more so, well, he was just abused. But he was always very nice and always loving and caring. But I feel like there is no sort of stakes nor any sort of pushback that Michael faces. I feel like he kind of triumphs over everything in this movie, in the sense of, because I don't really think that all this was easy to get. And I just have this real feeling like this movie is worried about making Michael more of an icon than it is about actually making him a flawed individual who probably had issues, even before the controversies aside. I'm saying actual human things. No sort of arguments or any sort of back and forth banters with his brothers. His brothers are pretty much irrelevant in this movie. If you're not going to focus on the Jackson 5 and actually make them characters and have their interactions with Michael, either you skip past the Jackson 5 stuff or you actually try to humanize even the Jackson 5 to some degree. Because if you're not going to do that, then what you're left is characters that just don't feel well rounded. They just feel like cardboard cutouts of actual people that I just feel like doesn't give you the well-roundedness of what real life would have given you, or at least some other depictions that have shown this family, or rather just show Michael in the sense of giving you something more than what this movie has to offer. The writing is stereotypical. Writer John Logan crafts a generic entire script that feels recycled, leaving nothing to really stand out. Nothing about this movie in the way in which characters come off or convey themselves just stands out. Nothing about this movie in the way in which characters' interactions and dialogue feel very unique to itself. It just really feels like John Logan looked at other biopic scripts and said, you know what, this can work. And then just took lines of dialogue and just plopped it into here. It's very simple on how this movie, who is focusing on a gifted individual and also doesn't really show us what makes him a genius. They just tell you how much he is loving tenderly, and also he is like the most gifted person in the world without any sort of explanation. Really, come on. This is Michael Jackson. You're not wanting to show us it, but you're gonna tell us it. To me, that's even lazier. Pacing runtime is elongated. Scenes would feel stretched out, them being simple. With a runtime of 2 hours and 7 minutes, it's just dragged out. I get that there was a 4-hour cut of this movie that they had to cut and redo, especially with the third act because of legal reasons. But man, it gets to a point where the pacing of this movie is just constant moving forward, fast and then stopping and then slowing down for a bit and then moving forward and fast. It's just a constant feeling of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and just never finding that sweet spot to where it feels natural and feels right. It all just feels like a jumbled mess on how it tries to go past everything in Michael's life and slow down in certain points. The editing is all over. When it comes to recreating iconic moments, they do seem chopped up quickly. I guess letting it focus on MJ's moves was, I guess, too slow, or just really wanting to brush over things just about too fast. It just feels like there's a lot of inconsistency with how the editing goes about in this movie, and that's just a huge disappointment, and not allowing people to actually see Michael in the creative process and rather just kind of flash forward through everything. And to me, the editing just is really inconsistent with itself. The visuals are distracting. Any moment that uses effects mainly for Jackson's pet friends, they look low quality and creepy. Even in a city where Michael is standing on top of a car waving at his fans, it's very noticeable. It's so distracting that it becomes almost embarrassing to see some of those visual effects on display, especially Bubbles, the monkey. Man, the way he's articulated in this movie just doesn't come naturally. It feels creepy. It feels awkward. And this ain't no Planet of the Apes visual effects. This is low quality, generic chimpanzee. That's what you get. And to me, some of those effects can be very bloated and cartoonish in the way it comes off. It really feels like it was all rushed in terms of its visual effects. Michael is a by the books biopic that doesn't make the subject figure an interesting person, but more of an icon. That's the problem here. It feels like the movie is worried about Michael's image too much to the point of we gotta treat him more like an icon than an actual character. It makes everything feel safe and protected than actually having a discussion about the king of pop and how you feel about him, but also his mind process, how he came up with some of these songs. Because they don't really show you it, they kind of just tell you it and fast forward through a lot of things. Though it's bolstered by its performances, music, production, and cinematography, it doesn't shine more than its look. And that's the best way I would describe this movie. It is a big music video that just looks beautiful, sounds great, but if you're looking for something that is so much more than that, you might as well look somewhere else. And for newcomers of Michael Jackson, they'll probably get a kick out of it, but at the same time, they'll probably be like, oh, I didn't know about this on certain other things that they come across, because I feel like a movie should tell you more than enough, and then if you want more, you can get more with it. It feels like the most basic stuff that you know about Michael Jackson, or at the very least, like information that you kind of be like, all right, yeah, I kind of knew about that. That's not enough. You gotta do more, and you gotta do better with that. I'm gonna give Michael a 4 out of 10. Listen, if you are just going in wanting the musical aspects of this movie and just to see Jaafar Jackson recreate some of his uncle's stuff, by all means, you're gonna have a great time. If you are looking for something much deeper, or at the very least get more of a perspective of who Michael was as the person, creatively and also personally, don't expect that. So I will be soon doing a review for Toy Story 4. So yes, look forward to that review and other reviews coming soon.